Before the first pyramid rose from the desert sand, before a single pharaoh pressed his seal into clay, before Egypt had a name, it had a family. That family descended from one man, Noah, the man God chose to survive the catastrophe that swallowed the entire world. When the floodwaters finally retreated and the ark came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat, Noah's 3 sons stepped out onto a silent, emptied earth. Their names were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And from these 3 men, every nation that has ever existed would one day come.
Hold that name, Mizraim. In the Hebrew language, Mizraim is the very word for Egypt. Every time the Old Testament says Egypt, it is speaking this name. Mizraim was not a legend. He was a man of flesh and blood, a grandson of Noah, and from him came the entire Egyptian nation. Mizraim led his family to the northeast corner of Africa, to a land threaded by a river unlike any other, the Nile. Every year it swelled and overflowed its banks, leaving behind a ribbon of rich black soil across an otherwise merciless desert. Mizraim's descendants planted their roots in that soil, raised their villages along its banks, and slowly, over countless generations, built one of the mightiest civilizations the world has ever known.
It was not born from mystery. It was born from a family. Generations passed. The small settlements along the Nile grew into great cities. Pharaohs rose to rule them. Egypt became famous, rich with grain, guarded by desert, watered by a river that never failed. It was into this kingdom that a man named Abram first descended. God had called Abram out of his homeland and settled him in Canaan with his wife Sarai. But then the land turned against them. Famine swept through Canaan. The rains failed. The crops withered. The threat of starvation crept closer each day. There was only one place in the region with food enough.
Caravan of camels and people moving toward the Egypt. Genesis 12:10. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. But as Abram approached Egypt's border, fear gripped him. Not fear of hunger, but fear of beauty. Sarai was a strikingly beautiful woman. Abram knew how power worked in a kingdom like this. A king who desired her would not ask politely.
Verse 12, 11 through 13. Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister. Everything Abram feared came true. The Egyptians saw Sarai. Word spread, as word always does in palaces, until it reached Pharaoh's ear. She was taken into his house. But God was watching.
Genesis 12, verses 17 through 20. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Now therefore, behold thy wife. Take her and go thy way. Abram left Egypt with his wife, his servants, and everything he had. This was the first encounter between God's chosen family and the nation of Egypt. It would not be the last. More generations passed. Abraham died. His son Isaac grew old. Isaac's son Jacob, the man God renamed Israel, fathered 12 sons who would one day become the 12 tribes of a nation. But of all his sons, there was one Jacob could not hide his love for. His name was Joseph. Genesis 37, 3 through 4.
Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him.
Then Joseph began to dream. In his first dream, his brothers' grain sheaves bowed down before his. In his second, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all fell in reverence to him. The message was unmistakable, and his brothers despised him all the more for it. Hatred, left long enough to fester, becomes a plan. Genesis 37:19 through 20. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. They stripped him of his coat. They threw him into an empty pit. Then, when a caravan of merchants appeared on the road to Egypt, Judah proposed something worse than murder, something designed to make Joseph disappear without blood on their hands.
Genesis 37:28. They drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. Joseph arrived in Egypt as property. He was purchased by Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard, one of the most powerful men in the kingdom. Joseph had lost everything: his father, his home, his freedom. But he had not lost God. Genesis 39:2 through 4. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he made him overseer over his house. Then came the trap. Potiphar's wife set her eyes on Joseph. Day after day she pressed him. Day after day he refused. Then one day, alone in the house, she seized his garment. Genesis 39, verse 12. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. She turned the garment into a weapon. She accused him to every servant, then to Potiphar himself. And Potiphar, in his rage, threw Joseph into the royal prison, the place where Pharaoh's own enemies were kept in chains. Joseph had done nothing wrong, yet he sat in the dark. And still, God did not forget him. Genesis 39, verses 21 through 23. Then one day, 2 of Pharaoh's most trusted servants were thrown into that same prison, the chief butler and the chief baker. One night, both men dreamed. Both woke disturbed, with no one to interpret what they had seen. Joseph saw their troubled faces and asked, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. The butler described a vine with 3 branches, grapes ripening and pressed into Pharaoh's cup. Joseph spoke with quiet certainty. Verse 12 and 13. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand. Then the baker spoke. His dream: 3 baskets of white bread stacked on his head, birds eating from the topmost basket. Joseph did not flinch from the truth. Verse 18 and 19. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee.
Then Pharaoh dreamed. He stood on the bank of the Nile and watched 7 fat, hideous cows rose behind them and devoured the fat ones whole. He woke in a cold sweat. When sleep finally returned, he dreamed again. 7 plump ears of grain on a single stalk, swallowed by 7 thin, scorched ears. In the morning, Pharaoh summoned every wise man and magician in Egypt. Not one could give him an answer. It was only then that the butler remembered. Joseph was pulled from the dungeon, shaved, dressed in clean clothes, and brought before the most powerful man on earth. Pharaoh told him the dreams. Joseph answered without hesitation,
"It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace, since his brothers sold him into slavery." The slave had become a prince. The prisoner now ruled the most powerful nation.
"For as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thee." Pharaoh's signet ring was pressed onto Joseph's finger. Fine linen was draped across his shoulders. A gold chain was placed around his neck. He was set in the second royal chariot, and as it moved through the streets of Egypt, the cry went ahead of him, "Bow the knee." The slave had become a prince. The prisoner now ruled the most powerful nation on earth. Joseph was 30 years old. 13 years had passed since his brothers sold him into slavery. Joseph moved fast. He crossed the whole land of Egypt, establishing storehouses in every city. For 7 years of extraordinary abundance, grain poured in, harvest after harvest so massive that his workers eventually stopped trying to count it. Genesis 41:49. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. During those years of plenty, Joseph's sons were born. He named his firstborn Manasseh, for God had made him forget his suffering. His second son he named Ephraim, for God had made him fruitful in the very land of his affliction. Then the 7 good years ended. The famine came exactly as God had said, not just to Egypt, but to every surrounding nation. Crops failed, wells dried, people grew desperate from every direction. And from every direction, foreigners streamed into Egypt, because Egypt alone had food. Genesis 41:57. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. Far to the north, in the dying fields of Canaan, an old man looked at his 10 sons and asked the question that would change everything. Genesis 42:1-2. Why do ye look one upon another? Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get ye down thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. 10 brothers traveled south into Egypt, the same land where 22 years earlier they had sold their brother into slavery. They came as desperate men seeking food. They had no idea what or who awaited them. Genesis 42:6-8. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them. Joseph recognized his brothers immediately, but they did not recognize him. 22 years had passed. He was no longer a frightened teenager. He was the second most powerful man in Egypt. And then something struck him. Genesis 42:9. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them. The brothers who had stood over a pit and laughed at the dreamer were now on their knees before him, and they had no idea. Joseph tested them across several visits, watching to see if they were still the men they had been. Finally, when he could bear it no longer, he cleared the room. Genesis 45:3-4.
Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. The brothers stood frozen in terror. But what came next was not revenge. It was something they could never have imagined and never could have deserved. Genesis 45, 5 through 8. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God.
Joseph's message raced back to Canaan with his brothers. Jacob, the old man who had wept for his son for over 20 years, who had kept the blood-stained coat as a wound he could never stop pressing, heard the words and at first could not take them in. Then he believed, and something in him, long extinguished, came alive again.
Genesis 46, verse 27. All the souls of the house of Jacob, which came into Egypt, were 70, 70 souls. Genesis 47, 5 through 6. Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, Thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. Narration. Pharaoh gave Jacob's family the best land in all Egypt. The family of Abraham had arrived, not as conquerors, but as refugees sustained by grace, and they were welcomed as guests of the throne.
Jacob lived 17 more years in Egypt. As death approached, he gathered his 12 sons and blessed each one, every blessing pointing toward a future still forming. He made Joseph swear to bury him not in Egypt, but in Canaan, in the cave his grandfather Abraham had purchased long ago, the burial ground of a promise not yet fulfilled. 70 people had walked into Egypt. From those 70, something was quietly growing. A people, a nation, a story that would one day shake the entire ancient world. God had promised Abraham that his descendants would be as countless as the stars. He promised Jacob that they would become a great nation. And here, in the land of Mizraim, in the very country that bore the name of Noah's grandson, that promise was quietly, powerfully taking root. Egypt and the people of God were now bound together. What would come next, the suffering, the miracles, the exodus, would be told in the chapters still ahead. But here, at the very beginning, we see the truth that runs through every page of Scripture.